This is our final session, and this is the interactive part of our session. I have invited a couple of people who are involved in really important social inclusion work around repair and secondary markets. Pete Schmiegel is going to be our first speaker, followed by Annette. So I might ask Annette to come up, and I might ask Leslie to join us, and also John Gutsakis out the front. The idea is this: I've asked Pete to give a 5-minute intro, and Bryce, I'm sorry, Bryce. I've asked each of the speakers to give a 5-minute overview of what they do in the repair space, and I think this is a really important one. So I'll hand over to Pete Schmiegel from Revolve Recycling. We've heard a lot about your fantastic work, Pete, so over to you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity. I want to acknowledge I'm on Eora Gadigal land. I don't do that perfunctorily. You're going to see why the indigeneity thing really matters to us as an organization. So you're standing with me in our warehouse, and you're looking at about 500 products. So everything behind me will actually be repaired by professional mechanics, warranted, certified in terms of safety, and then either sold at an affordable price, usually about $250 is our average price, or donated to kids. Our split at the moment is about 2/3 go to sale, 1/3 go to kids, deserving kids, indigenous kids, Ukrainian refugees, country kids, you name it. So we started 2 years ago with literally my wife, my now dead dog, and a beaten up ute. We started collecting bicycles in Sydney. We've now recovered, I'll tell you exactly, 5,671 bicycles. We've diverted 79 tons of material from landfill, and we've saved about 150 tons of CO2. Started as an entirely voluntary concern, e.g. me pulling money out of my pocket to make it happen, to us now having employed about 10 people. 3 of those people are from socially disadvantaged backgrounds of one sort or another, who probably would not have jobs if we weren't doing this kind of stuff, and they're frankly amongst our best employees. It's loud in here, so I'm going to keep walking. Okay, so one of the things that'll be of interest to yourselves is, of those 5,671 bicycles, 28% we have managed to make into products, e.g. reuse, fixing them, selling them, giving them away to deserving. By the way, these are even more bicycles that will not actually be repaired. They will be harvested. So we take parts off of these and we use them to do up the other bikes. Yeah, about 20%, 80% is the rule between reuse versus recycling. Now, the question is why? Why 20% get reused, repaired? Why do 80% go straight to scrap? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, reason is, if I were to basically make this an entirely recycling business, even though that's what the name says, I would be broke. Basically, it costs, oh, sorry. This is the workshop where all the magic happens. Our key employees are our mechanics. Sorry, Gustavo, you're not a key employee. And we'll return to that in a second as well. And I'll show you one other thing before I sit down. Yeah, so when I collect a bicycle, it costs me about $10. If I were to basically sell it entirely for scrap, I only get about $7 back. This is our building. We're housed by Bingo Industries, who, as part of their sustainability journey, feels it's worthwhile to have us in the building, as well as, you will see, an indigenous organization, which operates in the waste minimization space, and I'm going to return to that in a second. So recycling does not pay for itself when it comes to bicycles, and arguably it's not as high in environmental value, etc. So without the reuse component, we actually wouldn't have, what I call business unusual, our little profit for purpose organization. Could I be reusing or repairing more than the, let's say, percentage of total amount collected at the moment? Yes and no. Start from the no. So of all those bikes that you saw back there just now, none of those bikes are sold by, ridden by people who have gone to a store that I might, for the purposes of the exercise, called C-Mart. C standing for crap. 50% of Australia's bicycles are sold by big retailers, and they are effectively unbranded. They all come out of basically one factory, two factories in Taiwan and in China, and they're awful. The average ride time for a bike sold through those big retailers through C-Mart, and that's 50% of the 1.5 million bicycles that are out there every year now, 750,000 bicycles, their average ride time is about 90 hours. Not 90 days, 90 hours. And I really want to be satisfied that that's accurate. It's an American number. So at the moment, Choice Magazine, and Choice, the organization that looks into consumer affairs and rights, is actually doing a study comparing Kmart bikes to other bikes to actually look at issues of durability and longevity, et cetera. And we're going to be very interested to see what the outcomes of that is, whether it's more or less than the 90 hours, if you will. So 50% of what I collect, I automatically cannot make into a product because it's shit to begin with. In this business and in every other recycling and reuse business, garbage in equals garbage out. If the input is not of a sufficient quality, it is extraordinarily expensive, technically difficult, financially unsustainable.
It's 16 hours.
To do that into a new product, right? So I'm going to basically be acknowledging the fact that I've got about 5 minutes. I think that's probably about enough to start with. But let me give you a couple of thoughts broadly. What's the other factor in terms of us not being able to reuse more bikes, repair more bikes? Skills. So I said before, bicycle mechanics are the key part of this business, and there's an absolute shortage of them in Sydney. There's an absolute shortage of them across the country. We're moving into this amazing thing called the mobility revolution. Bike sales are hugely up. You see it all across our cities now, people using bikes and e-bikes, et cetera, et cetera. But we don't actually have, in Sydney, we have one course where people can become a bike mechanic. In our case, we're solving our own problem. You notice the Indigenous organization upstairs. We've actually started our own training program where we're recruiting young Indigenous people to become bike mechanics. So we're actually designing our own supply chain to solve our own problem. But skills, without a doubt, there are just not enough young folk out there who work with these as opposed to these anymore. And for us to be a viable, sustainable reuse organization going into the future, we have to fix our own problem around skills. The other problem is around design. Bikes okay, but in 10 years' time, 75% of all bikes on the road will have a battery on them. They'll be e-bikes. We've started to see it. In fact, I can take you back to a room there where we've got about 25 e-bikes set away that we're experimenting with at the moment in terms of trying to repair, et cetera. And it's really hard slog. A couple of reasons. First of all, the ones that are coming back are absolute crap. They get bought online for $200, $300 from China. They're poorly designed. They have suboptimal materials on them. They have faulty batteries on them, batteries that, by the way, blow up in certain situations, including in scrap metal yards. There is a whole issue around design that's about to hit Australia hard because pretty much every e-bike coming into the country is of substandard design, and there ain't no regulatory provisions around it at all. And yeah, we might have rules around WTO about banning bad environmental impacts from being imported to the country. Nobody's even thought about it at this stage. So that is one. Skills, one factor in our growth. Two, terrible design. Three, we'd make the argument that if 50% of the bikes in the country are so bad that they cannot be reused at all, that's a pretty damn good case for some element of product stewardship. That if you're going to sell this stuff, you have to have at least some involvement in what happens to it post its initial use. I think I'll shut up for there.
Much. That's great. Pete has to go. So are there any quick questions that we can, that you'd like Pete to answer before he leaves us? I think you've given us a fantastic insight, Pete, and we congratulate you on the fantastic work that you're doing at Revolve Recycling. Thank you very much for your time today.
Before I do that, may I acknowledge Guido Verbiste, our general manager. I'm a good talker. Guido's the actual doer in our business, and he's well known to many of you there in the room. Guido is having his first holiday in 2 years since we started, so he sends his apologies. Secondly, can I acknowledge Mr. John Goutsakis? John is everything that I'm not, e.g. he's patient around these issues. Whereas I've lost patience and decided just to become a general hand in a bike business. So I wish you all the best, more strength to your arms.
Thank you. Would you like to comment?
Hi, I'm Annette Main and I'm the founder of the Reconnect Project. We are Australia's first registered charity and social enterprise that operates a mobile phone repair shopfront. Based in Sydney South, we take in mobile phones, tablets, laptops, any electrical or electronic appliances really, and repair those for the general public. And if you walk past our shop front, that's what you'd think we are. You'd think that we're just a repair shop. But behind the scenes, what we're actually doing is a much bigger social impact picture. We take in donations of unwanted mobile technology, phones, tablets and laptops, securely erase them, and then work with neurodivergent young adults, teaching them the art of repair, the skills that they require, to get those devices refurbished. Then, through a network of over 100 social service organisations just in Sydney, we distribute those refurbished devices to people who would otherwise be digitally excluded in society. Currently, 25% of the Australian population is classified as digitally excluded, and a big part of that is actually because they don't have access to appropriate technology. That's one thing that, behind the scenes, we're looking to solve, is closing Australia's digital divide. The other side, behind the scenes, as I mentioned, is the training component. And a bit like what Alexandre is doing in France is, actually back in 2018, I first started looking into the idea of creating a mobile device repair academy here in Australia. And my background's actually in waste and recycling. And I started looking into what that might entail and fielding out a few different people, including John, and thought, well, you know what? Mobile Muster says that there's 23 million phones sitting out there in the bottom drawer of your desk or wherever, forgotten about, it's broken, you don't know what to do with it. There's a whole load of people in society that need access to a mobile phone. A woman fleeing a situation of family violence needs a safe, untracked phone. A refugee needs a phone to be able to look for jobs or housing. Someone exiting the justice system needs to have a phone to remain in contact with their parole officer 24/7. Someone coming out of a mental health acute unit at a hospital needs to have a phone so that their support people and mental health practitioners can keep in touch with them. Well, let's get these old phones, let's get them fixed and let's get them out to people. And that middle bit is where the right to repair really comes to play for us. So we're training neurodivergent young adults. These kids come to us, they might have been out of school for a year or two already. They have an interest in tech. A lot of people say, oh, a kid with autism, yeah, they love technology. Well, not everyone wants to be a software engineer or a data analyst. Some people like playing with screwdrivers and actually opening up devices and repairing them. And it's a great sense of self-satisfaction too when you've brought something back to life. So we train kids and we're developing an accredited program that works specifically with neurodivergent young adults. Hopefully by the end of the year we'll run a pilot session, and by the end of next year take our program forward for some form of government accreditation. That is the plan. And along the way we're going to be training and building a workforce, because device repairs, as phones become more expensive and we hold on to them for much longer, we need to be able to make sure that we can access quality, affordable repair services. A bit like Alexandre was saying, how do you know if the person that's repairing your phone is actually going to do a good job, if they're going to keep your data safe? So bringing this along with our journey is something that the Reconnect Project is looking to do. That's us, and that's how we fit into the whole right to repair component.
And next I'd like to introduce Bryce McIntosh from EMPR Australia, who is also one of our sponsors today. Cool. Over to you.
Well, thank you everybody. Thank you, Leanne. Look, just a brief introduction about EMPR. So, meanwhile, everyone do some more Q&A sessions and engage a bit more. Look, we're the authorised supplier for many leading IT brands. So we look after brands like Lenovo, HP, Dell, Toshiba, Lexmark. So our core business is bringing parts into country, managing the inventory and getting them to market to all custom segments. What we have to do is we take minimal data that we can receive from the brands, build all the data in-house, the systems and tools to enable customers to buy online with a few simple clicks. Look, our focus over the last 2 years has really been enabling the end users and direct customers to be able to buy spare parts directly at a cost-effective price. For end users and home users, it's hard to understand which spare part you need for your laptop. That you need to understand your model number, serial number, and there's many spare parts available. So we've simplified that. We've taken all the complexity out of it in our website and just made it really friendly for customers to buy. Our other focus is really on ensuring we have long lifespans of parts. We focus on end-of-life, constrained and obsolete parts. We're still supplying parts for machines that are more than 13 years old, so that while the brands do stop production, we'll continue to support, and while we can't get support from them, we'll also go looking at alternative sources to make sure they're readily available within the Australian market. I don't know really what else to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you everybody, and
thank you again. Take a seat. I should also say that Bryce has been really supportive of my university Repair Cafe initiative. As I said, we've offered 5 at Griffith University, and Bryce, through EMPR Australia, has supplied a whole set of these wonderful toolkits for our students and staff to use when they do repair things, and they've been fabulous, actually. So this is an opportunity to open to everyone here what I'm excited about every time that we run an Australian Repair Summit. While there are 60 or so people here in the room, you probably don't know that there's essentially a couple of hundred people online joining us. So it would be wonderful that one day that we could actually all get together, and maybe that is something that we can hope for in the future. But I know that each time that we hold a Repair Summit, that we have new interested stakeholders come and join us, and I think that is what this event is all about. So this is an opportunity, and I'm just going to open by asking Ginny to perhaps stand up. I know that Ginny has come from Clean Star, which is a very large cleaning company, but just to share some insights from that industry, and I will invite anyone similarly the same to stand up and share your interest or your stake in the repair debate. But perhaps over to you. I'll just get a microphone to you, Ginny. And this is really an opportunity for us all to answer a question and an open dialogue.
No worries. So I'm Ginny. I'm from Clean Star X-Power. We wholesale and import commercial cleaning equipment, vacuums, restoration equipment. We're very equipment heavy, obviously, and we stock obviously a huge range of spare parts as well. The reason that we follow this Repair Summit, so closely once we found out about it, is we've got many hurdles when it comes to finding repairers for our products. We have such a varied range, from stick vacuums to scrubbing machines, and finding people to repair them, it's really quite difficult. It's what we consider right now a dying art. I've been in this industry 10 years now, and the repairers that we have, they're retiring. They don't have anybody there to pass the torch on to. And so we're having less and less people that we can rely on to warrant our products, to repair them after the warranty period. And it's just something that we're looking for a solution. So that's why I'm here.
Thanks, Ginny. That's really useful. Thank you very much for sharing that. This is it's a really significant industry for a number of industries. This kind of the passing of tradespeople who have been trained in the last 20 to 30 years. We probably have Danny here as a living example of... But we all know, and I'm not being ageist, but we all know that people of our grandparents' generation who came through the 30s with, you know, make, mend and do, essentially have the skills that we no longer teach in our schools. So sewing, the woodworking skills, the electrical skills. Essentially, I did invite the Australian TAFE directors to come along today to talk about this very issue of training, because we know that the right courses aren't being offered in refrigeration mechanics and a whole lot of repair industries. But that is really interesting, their response, and I respect that, is that it is for industry to come to the training centres to say we need these courses, and that will be something that we perhaps can take up in the future, how we respond to the needs of different industries. But I hope today, and by joining the Australian Repair Network, that we actually can make some connections for you, and perhaps that there's some opportunity there for you as well. Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, sure. This is a back and forward.
Just a question about like repairers. Do they have to be qualified? Because actually, I know someone who unfortunately has got been diagnosed with epilepsy, and he's not allowed to drive, and he's very good at. He gets on Marketplace and he buys stuff, fixes it up from the tip shop. He's a qualified upholsterer, but he's an absolute genius. I told him when we were growing up together, we've been best mates for like 40 years. And I said, mate, if you're a mechanic, you would be one of the best in the world that I know of, like self-taught. And he buys, when you mentioned vacuum cleaners, like that's one of the things he buys for next to nothing and fixes them up and sells them. So do they have to be qualified people?
Pretty much everywhere except Queensland. Sorry, Queensland.
There's a common theme about Queensland.
No, you don't have to have any sort of license. You have to have half a brain, and so that's where the almost apprenticeship type training is really, really important, because you can't just go out and get some certification and say, yeah, I can repair a vacuum now. Yes, I can do cleaning equipment. It needs to be taught. So somebody like your friend who has those basics already, you can start in the simple, domestic range. And that's definitely somewhere where they could thrive. And we encourage that. We always say we love repairers. Like we're predominantly wholesale. So we've got a bit of a barrier between us and the end user. And so we rely heavily on our distributors. And it used to be, 50% of our retail distributors would have their repairer out the back. That has reduced drastically. You no longer have that repairer out the back at the electronics store that can, fix your equipment for you, or your commercial cleaning stores. And it's an issue now. So, yeah, it's just Queensland. You need a restricted electrical licence, even though it's plug-in.
In Queensland, you actually need a licence.
You need to be a licensed electrician in Queensland to touch anything with a plug.
Yeah, whereas, everywhere else, like, Victoria, for example, they specifically say if it's a plug-in device, you do not need an electrical or a restricted electrical licence.
Well, that's right, because he lives in Queensland and his mum but his mum lives down in Tweed, so he can go down and see his mum and fix them down there.
So thank you. And maybe we just need a bit of a repair dating agency between Repair Tinder or... There's a question in the middle. We have a question. Thank you.
Hi there, Katrina Dixon, Director on the board at Clean Up Australia. Annette, my question for you, I was fascinated when you were talking about the young people who are in your program. Can you give us a bit more insight into how you source them, the community that supports you, and realistically your vision in the way that you are including community in this very worthy project that you're bringing to the community?
Yeah, absolutely. We're a very small organisation. I founded the Reconnect project in 2019 with $5,000 in crowdfunding, half of which was my own money. And we've received zero government support, zero major philanthropic support for what we do. It came, and we became public in February of 2020, operating out of a shared space with another repair organisation. The world shifted in March. We shut down our retail service operation, and word spread amongst the caseworker network that there was this organisation distributing refurbished phones. Within about 6 to 8 weeks, had 400 requests for phones. So the whole training program essentially just got shelved for 2020, 2021. And we were just working to keep up with the demand for the need in the community for access to quality refurbished devices. Then when we opened the shop front in early 2021, I was talking to a friend. My daughter is best friends with her son. And I didn't realise that she had an older son. And his name's Wilbur, and he'd dropped out of school partway in year 11. He'd been severely bullied, fell into a deep pit of depression, developed OCD, he has ADHD, and social anxiety. But he loves tinkering with things, and I gave him my old 1980s Game Boy and said, "Can you get this working again for me, please?" And he did. I said, "Are you interested in learning about other repairs?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Can you come up and spend some time with our technician and pick up a few skills?" So Wilbur joined us as a volunteer and just started absorbing the information, and then would go home with boxes of broken phones and parts and tinker and play around until he figured it out. At the end of that year, we'd repaired a television for a local customer, and she rang me and she said, "Do you take on young kids that are interested in tech repair?" And I'm, "Yeah." She said, "Okay, I'd like to introduce this young chap to you, and his name's Ben." As soon as Ben walked through the door, you could see that Ben was neurodivergent. But he walked in and his eyes, he just lit up. He just went, "Oh." And he walked straight over to a pile of MacBooks. "I can take that one, and I can take that one, and I can make one that works. And what have you got out the back here? Mum, look at all these laptops." And he was off. We now employ Ben and Wilbur, and they are the reason why the training program exists. Well, it was always part of my initial aim. It didn't happen for the first 2 years. 2022, we started seeking funding and getting it on board. We don't need to advertise for participants. I have a wait list of kids just in the St George and Sutherland Shire region of Sydney who want to be a part of this. I've got networks with life skills support teachers at a number of public high schools locally. They are feeding kids in our direction. Word of mouth is spreading significantly. So I'll just add to that as well. I'll just say, you know what? All these kids need is a safe and supportive environment, somewhere where they can learn and be taught by people who understand and can recognise that there might be some social nuances or some communication differences, but that is all they need. Once they're in that zone and they're working, Wilbur can now change an iPhone 6 battery in 12 minutes.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. I'm just going. Are there any other people who'd like to speak? I know David. David, you're here from the Sydney. Sorry. So you can say where you're from. Sorry.
Thank you, Leanne. David Kuhn, Southern Sydney Regional Organisation of Councils, SSROC. 12 councils in Southern Sydney, 1.9 million people. So thanks, Leanne. But I guess we're at this cross-section between policy, programs, and procurement. We do a lot of group buying. We run over 50 joint tenders between our 12 member councils. And so we're always thinking like commercially in terms of repair, how can we harness repair, repurposing, and reuse into everything that we buy? It's everything from fleet to recycled crushed glass for road making. All the things that councils kind of tend to buy. And, there's a lot of business waste, of course, with councils and all their assets and that kind of thing. We're working in textiles heavily and working with Omar on a couple projects. So I guess I've been picking up a lot today from, kind of dreaming about doing our own reuse bonus. If we could pilot something that actually moves the needle and for government to really look at it. But so what I'd like to know from the panel and anyone else, what other roles do you see local government playing in repair? I mean, we know about repair cafes. We were close with the Bauer for quite a while, running a lot of education programs on repair and reuse. But we're really looking for scalable initiatives that would move us for repair.
I will mention at the moment I'm working with our Logan City Council in Queensland, who are talking to their economic development, community development and waste areas. So 3 areas of council, and with Ipswich City Council and different city councils in our southeast Queensland area, exactly that same question. What can they do to scale up? There's a really good example. Christine is here from the Newcastle Library. Hello, Christine. I'm fascinated with the Newcastle Library that offers a repair cafe, and they pay their repairers. Wow. There are lots of examples from paying, for example, for us in Queensland, if we could have a fund where we could pay licensed electricians to attend the 14 repair cafes that we have, because it is so impossible to repair anything. And electrical items, household goods are always a highest, biggest line. It's the most returned product in terms of frayed cord, switch broken, simple things. But in Queensland, we are restricted from touching anything with a plug unless you're a licensed electrician. So there are lots of ways, and I'm more than happy to put you in contact with some other councils and we can have this great conversation, because I think we're talking, one of the challenges, as I said, is we cross all levels of government, local city councils, local government, state governments, federal government, and such a broad range of portfolios. But there are so many levers available at each level that we can try. I think we really have to just start somewhere. As we've seen with Austria, there needs to be a start. We're not doing anything really, and that's what I'd just like to see, the momentum that we're providing here, that someone just tries something from a government, really. Sorry, John, do you have any? Sorry, Christine, did you want to say a little bit about your model? I do like the fact that you pay repairers.
Hi everyone, I'm Christina Roberts from Newcastle Libraries, which is part of the City of Newcastle, which is the local council government area. I didn't realise that we were about the only people that actually paid our repairers, which is absolutely amazing. I guess one thing I'm taking out of today, and I really wanted to have a chat with you actually about how local government can really support this movement. I feel like, so my role is actually the partnership facilitator at the library, and so the Repair Cafe is just one of the suite of programs that I deliver for the community. But I'm very interested, and I can really see within council, like I'm already working with Waste Services to fund part of the Repair Cafe, and I've been promoting it to the person that runs the circular economy plan and the sustainability manager. And so Newcastle Council have only recently adopted a new environment strategy. And so the person who has to now develop council's circular economy action plan has said to me, Christina, you and Alicia from Waste Services are basically doing that on the ground with our low waste living program, which includes Repair Cafe. Can you contribute to that action plan? I'm so excited, which is why I'm really keen to be here today and hear what everyone's doing. But yeah, it's just like a light bulb moment for me to be here today to see, well, what can local government do, and how can, like the libraries is just one service unit, but if we can work with different parts of council, I think we can make more happen.
That's fantastic.
Which is fantastic.
I'll share one example I've learned from my overseas trip is in the UK with the Restart Group. What they did, and this was all manned by volunteers, but they literally had a team of people go to one of their local waste dumps in one of their boroughs. For 1 week, they tracked everything with a plug that was taken to that waste resource centre and took it away and ascertained what was wrong with it. There was something like 30%, there was nothing wrong with it. It was just like an old TV that wasn't a smart TV. There was nothing wrong with that. There was a lot of devices that were probably just older versions. A few had very minor cracks in screens or a cord missing or, simple things. So that kind of exercise needs a little bbit of funding. I'd love to be able to do that in the university, but we're trying to do a lot with nothing. If there is some possibility of funding, there is so much good research that we can do to provide information and results to government to show that this will work. If we can stop at that point of waste, things going into that big pit, immediately and take it away, and even have some waste, if you have a repair recycle shop, at the waste tip, but we can't rely upon the volunteer movement to do this constantly. So I've got a whole lot of ideas. Part of my future fellowship has afforded me the privilege of being able to spend time overseas in those European countries, in different jurisdictions, examining all of the different fantastic things that are happening in local communities. It's how I met Marcus, it's how I know all of these people, is just following what's happening. And it's disappointing that we have so much enthusiasm here in Australia for this and appetite, but we can't do it on the smell of an oily rag. So yes, Lucy, we'll probably just have one more and then I might close, because I'm guessing that everybody would like to have a drink, because I think I do.
Yeah, is this on? Can you hear me? I don't want to keep anyone from a drink, but I'm working on a project. I'm Lucy from Let Me Be Frank, and we're a consultant. We work in sustainability and environmental and social justice. We're doing a project with Bayside City Council in Melbourne that's funded by Sustainability Victoria, based on a feasibility study that one of my colleagues did about setting up repair cafes in Bayside. And they're actually having 6, they're calling them roving repair workshops, to activate the community. And they've got a new contract with their waste and transfer station, and they've put in the contract that they have to have a repair cafe. So I just thought that's another example of a council. The contract was up for renewable, this project was happening, and we managed to get it in there. And it's come from the waste and recycling and circular economy part of council. Council owns the transfer station, but it's been run privately.
And Brisbane is hosting later this year, and Griffith is a sponsor of the Asia Pacific Lord Mayors and Cities and Lord Mayors Summit. It's a really big event. I'd like to talk to every Lord Mayor and City Council about, what role repair can play in their communities across the Asia Pacific. But it is not only up to local government, it's up to the federal government and the Queensland government as well.
Can I-
John, yes, sorry.
I think David and the person from Newcastle raise a really important issue around what can be done, how could it be done, and I think that we need to not lose sight, if we're talking about circularity genuinely, authentically, that requires systemic change. So we don't create silos. Here's all of the things on repair. Here's all of the things on durability. Here's all of the things on recycling. There needs to be a much more integrated approach. So and the way to do that in part is partnerships, but there is a need to think about systemic change here, and so that people can pick and choose. If it's about how to buy better, what's the one source of information to buy better, to make things last, as Vivienne Westwood says, to really look at how we consume differently. Because I think if we get too siloed in some of these things, it's really going to just create a whole lot of tribes. And in terms of the environmental and social benefit nationally, for Middle Australia and the vast majority, the environmental and social benefit is potentially limited. So I think a more integrated approach, so you can go to these centres and have something repaired, or there could be a tool library there and a maker's space and consumer information on how to buy better. But I think the things you're doing possibly with OMA and Charitable Recycling Australia, I think a partnership approach as opposed. I think the other thing that's really, really important here is that repair can mean different things to different stakeholders. And so there's the whole fantastic community-based grassroots approach with repair cafes, but we really need to look at scaling that up and a commercial approach, back to the days when every high street had a fridge mechanic, had a computer and TV repair business and all the rest of it. That's where you'll start to see greater awareness and understanding. So it's both, you know, DIY repair, but also the repair industry more broadly, and we really need that.
I'm just going to jump in on the back of that as well. And what frustrates me so often is that it's seen as under the waste category. This falls under waste. This falls under that side of things. Why can't it fall under asset? Why can't it fall under procurement? Why can't they say, well, actually, council employs 5,000 people, for example, you know, in various different roles. All those people are issued with a mobile phone, or this department has 50 iPads. Oh, we break one. Oh, it's too hard to go and get it repaired. We'll just issue another one. Let's change the narrative right there and then and say, well, actually, the cost benefit to council in having their own technology repaired, their own appliances, their own machinery and heavy equipment, having it repaired, how much is that going to save the council in the long run? And use that and say, well, actually, here's an economic case for it. And how many people then can we employ locally to provide those repair services?
Thank you. It has now gone just past 4:30, so I will bring this to a close. Look, there are really three things I'd like to talk about in closing. The first is, look, we know that repair is fragmented. We've heard so many different stories from different industries, coming from different areas as well. We have people, you know, talking about mobile phones, cars, heavy machinery, wheelchairs. We've heard it all today, and I think this is something that touches each and every one of us. We have different disciplines, as our steering committee reflects. We have people from design, we have people from environmental sustainability, we have people from product stewardship, we have people from the automotive industry, we have people from agriculture, we have people interested in the medical device field and assistive technologies. This is a very broad issue. Number two, what accountability for repair is also fragmented, and this is one of the challenges. We've identified the range of federal government departments that we have, the state government departments. Even in my own university, universities now get ranked on the Times Higher Education ranking on their performance according to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Most universities, if they look around, if they ran a repair cafe, we would tick so many boxes. Student engagement, work integrated learning, you know, repair skills, but also reducing waste on campus and giving the students and staff opportunity to have a hands-on practical experience. So we can see this scaled up in so many different areas, but the issue is without any movement by government, this will not happen. Okay, we all know that. The third thing is that we have heard today, and we all know it, that we have fallen behind. We were in 2020 and 2021 on the crest of a wave in the international repair movement with our Productivity Commission, with the recommendations that were well-founded, well-researched and well-supported. I was travelling the world talking about how well Australia was doing. It's a shame to not be able to continue to do that. So I think what we really have to, and part of what we've heard from France and Austria and Europeans and Canada, we know happening in India, but also in the US from Kyle, we always hear so much is happening. But the one positive thing is that our Australian Repair Summit really is the antidote to all of those things, I think. Bringing everybody together and building this community and strengthening the community and knowledge and awareness raising around the role that repair can play. It is not just about waste, it is about competition, it is about fair and open markets, it is about empowering our consumers and rebalancing that relationship between the people who are making these things and those of us who buy them and own them. The manufacturers who make things know everything about them. Are the batteries integrated? Are the batteries removable? What are the hazardous materials in those devices? We are not told anything as consumers or buyers of those products. That is just the ultimate information asymmetry, and that really needs to be addressed. So we are all about creating a repair community here, and I really thank everyone for joining us today here and online. There's so many of you. I wish you were all here together. I think we should all get together at some point in the future. I'd love to see and meet each and every one of you. People from around the world as well, you're always welcome to come to Australia. So what are our next moves? We need to use our connections, make connections and build upon those. We will be holding an Australian Repair Summit next year. I always think that I won't be, but I will be holding one next year. And this is really an opportunity. You can join the Australian Repair Network. You can reach out to me on almost any of those issues that we've talked about today. This is my research area. This is my passion. That the Australian Research Council has privileged me with, the opportunity to spend 4 years of my life looking at this so that Australia can be in a better position. So I really urge you to continue your engagement with each other, with us. If you feel as though you want to become more involved in the Australian Repair Network, at the moment we are collecting everyone, we have a database. We will ask your permission today whether if people are interested in sharing their details with each other so that you can communicate and network, we are happy to facilitate that. That is not a concern. But going forward, if anyone would like to come and talk to us about the role that they can play with the Australian Repair Network, whether that be on our steering committee, we change focus, there will be different priorities, we welcome people to come. Our steering committee essentially was formed to run the first Australian Repair Summit back 3 years ago. So we would love to hear from you and get more involved. But I would thank you once again. I would like to thank PIP and Clean Up Australia. I would like to thank iFixit. I would like to thank EMPR Australia again. I would also like to thank the ARC, the Griffith University Law Futures Centre, Melanie Davies, who has been wonderful, Kelly Burstow, who has been wonderful, and I do thank the National Library and all of their staff for hosting us today, and I thank you once again for coming. Thank you. Please join us for a drink.